definitely say the best free traffic when starting out is social media and email marketing.
What would you say were the top mistakes that e-commerce stores make?
Yeah, I think having a strategy and then putting the consistency to it. So knowing, okay, I'm going to post on Instagram 3 days a week and I'm going to post about this type of content, because you don't want it to always just be like, hey, buy my product all the time. You're going to really turn people away. So having a strategy and knowing who your ideal customer is and how to constantly talk to them where it's not always about your product, but it's other topics that interest them that are still in line with your product as well. So making sure that you have that strategy and that you've taken the time to really think through who your ideal customer is and how to constantly engage them and reach out to them.
Okay. So, I mean, my next question, maybe I should have asked you at the beginning, which is actually, how would someone start to set up a Shopify store? You know, someone listening to this who just hasn't got a clue what to do or where to go, how would they initially get started?
Yeah, so Shopify does have a 14-day free trial, which means that you can build out your store for 14 days without having to pay any ongoing costs. So that's a really helpful way to get started. So I would first just go to shopify.com and sign up for that free trial. And then the next step is going to be thinking through of what kind of content you need on your site. So not only are, what products are you going to have, but how are you going to categorize them into different collections? So, for example, hats and tops and sunglasses. So making those kind of buckets that make sense to customers whenever they shop your store. If they come to your store and it's just all your products there, it's going to be very overwhelming. So knowing exactly how your ideal customer is going to navigate through your site and figure out where the different collections are of how they can shop your products. And then the last thing I would think about would also be what kind of information you want to have on your site, like your About Us page or FAQs. Things like that kind of take a little bit of additional time that people don't really realize. But your About Us page is one of your top performing pages that people go to on your site. So it's really important to make sure that when you are building out your store that you do think about those things that people are going to be interested in learning more about you and how you can incorporate your branding and your story throughout your store as well.
Mm-hmm. Going back to when you first started out, what type of things did you sell? I know you initially said you used it for your wedding invitation business. I'm assuming you've had a few Shopify stores over the years. So for you personally, what have you found to be the most successful?
Yeah, so I started out with the wedding invitations just because that was a business that I have. I have a background in graphic design, so a lot of my stores are actually focused on, my favorite is print on demand. So it's something where I can create a product and a design myself, and then I'm getting another company to then print that design on mugs and t-shirts, things like that. So I've really liked that the most just because I come from that design background, and it does let you kind of have that independence to whenever you have an idea that you think would resonate with your audience to try it out. And again, you're not having to purchase all that inventory up front. So it is really kind of at least freeing as a designer to be able to design something and go, we'll see if people like this or not, and not have to worry about any lost money in terms of inventory as well.
Where would someone go to find out the best companies for printing on demand? Like where is there any top companies out there that you would recommend that people go, or would you just recommend that people Google it?
So if you're using Shopify, I would definitely recommend either Printful or Printify, because they are both platforms that it can print on a large amount of products, but you can actually add the app into your Shopify store. So as soon as that order comes in, through the app, it actually goes directly to that printing company. So you don't have to do any back and forth emailing with the printing company. It's automatically sent to their system. So again, it's taking a lot more of time away from you of having to worry about the fulfillment. As soon as it comes in, it instantly goes to them. And they do have nice competitive prices as well. So that's Printful and Printify that I would recommend.
Thank you. That sounds like a great place for someone to start at. If they're completely new to this, they haven't got any experience, and they just want to test it and give it a go, and they don't have any, a lot of startup costs as well. You know, I can imagine that this would probably be a fantastic place for someone to get to start and test it out. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're not a designer, then you will have to think about, who is going to actually design the products for you. So you may have to hire a designer, so you may have some additional costs there. I've heard of a lot of people using 99designs.com, and it's kind of like a crowdsourcing of a design competition. So you can get a couple different designs that you can choose from of what you like best if you bring the initial concept for them. So there would be a tiny bit additional cost if you yourself are not a designer or don't have a designer on your team doing print on demand. But there are definitely a lot of resources out there to find designers easily.
Fantastic. I think print on demand would actually be good for my clothing on my website. I'm currently looking for suppliers for that. For my and I need to change the wording. But I guess logistically, you need to think where you are as well. I mean, I have a large audience in the States, but also obviously I'm based in the UAE, and a lot of people listening from here do live in the UAE. So I guess if they're looking at print on demand, maybe they would be looking at suppliers in the UAE rather than the US, because there's going to be, like the shipping time. What would you recommend there?
So Printful and Printify both have fulfillment companies across the US or across the world. They do printing in the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, and I think Lithuania may be one of them as well. So they do have different facilities around the world, but you do have to think, if you are marketing a product to people outside of where you are living, that you may have some customs costs. So I would definitely think through of not only where you're located, but where your customers that you're going to be marketing to are located. So that way, if you're in the UAE, but your customers that you're marketing to are in the US, you can definitely find printing manufacturers in the US so that the shipping time is higher or a lot faster, as well as you're not having to pay customs charges as well. So I would definitely reach out, and if you are going to be selling a lot more products inside the UAE, maybe finding a local manufacturer there.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you for that. And what about the startup costs? How much would it actually cost an individual to set up a Shopify store from scratch?
Yeah, so Shopify has a couple of different plans. Their basic plan is $29 a month that covers a lot of the things that you would need. The next step up is $79 a month, which has gift cards and some advanced reporting. So I'd say both of those options are really great for you. There are some free apps that you can do to expand your store's functionality, as well as free themes, which is how you can actually customize your site design. There are, of course, some paid apps as well as paid themes. However, I would say with Shopify, the costs are pretty low of starting out. And then you just need to think about, $10 for a domain, and then just the ongoing charges monthly after that. I see a lot of times where people get really excited with all the different app choices that are out there. But if you add a lot of apps to your store, the cost is going to add up pretty quickly. So just make sure that you're being mindful about what exact functionality that you need on your store to actually incorporate in the beginning. Because I do think at the very beginning, when you're first launching your store, you can keep your costs down a lot lower so that you're kind of testing things out before you're having to spend a lot more money on adding apps for like rewards programs and things like that.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to add? You've given us some great tips there and a lot of information, which I'm sure will help a lot of people if they're interested in earning additional revenue stream. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we bring the podcast to an end?
Yeah, so we already kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I would say again to just stick with it and make sure that you're giving something enough time to actually see if it's working or not. Plus, the beauty with an e-commerce store is maybe if you thought this product was going to be your big winner product and it's not really, it's okay. You can totally pivot and try something else. But the key is to be consistent and to keep trying so that you don't just give up after the first time. It may take a few different products to really find one that works for you, as well as a few different ways of reaching out to your ideal customer. So definitely stick with it. It'll be worth it in the long run if you can build a business on the side. It is a little challenging, but it's very rewarding and worth it.
how long would it take for someone to set up a a decent income stream? And when I say decent, I mean, let's say, I'd say about $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. I mean, I know someone who he set up 5 Shopify stores. It'd be very interesting, actually, and he was drop shipping from them all. Really interesting to see how he's doing at the moment. I might reach out to him. And it was just, they were pretty much just taking care of themselves. Once he set them up, it wasn't a huge amount for him to do, he said. And then obviously it was just a secondary income for him. I think last time I spoke to him was well over a year ago. I think he was earning about $5,000 or $6,000, and that was actually from 5 stores. And it had taken him a while to get that traction up, but it's certainly nothing to be shunned at, as an additional passive income stream almost coming in. How realistic is it, for someone to start earning a good income stream that may possibly replace their full-time income?
Yeah, I would definitely go into it thinking that it's probably going to take at least 6 months plus to be able to reliably and stably replace your existing income. I think a lot of times it also depends on how much time or money you're bringing into it. So if you don't have a lot of money to spend on paid advertising, then I would focus on spending your time of growing organically through social media and through email marketing. If you don't have a lot of time, but you do have more money, then I would look at more doing paid advertising to get your store going faster. So I think either you need to anticipate spending either time or money, but be realistic as well as, I don't know if you've seen those YouTube videos, but it's like, in 30 days, I made $1 million. That's not really the standard. And a lot of times they don't share how much they actually spent in advertising all of that. So I would say as a good rule of thumb, at least 6 months to really get kind of your footing and to have a stable income stream there. Obviously, it can kind of go up and down throughout the year as the seasons go on. Definitely the holidays are where you can make the most money with e-commerce, but to just be mindful of, you are going to have to put in some effort into it in the beginning, but the payoff is nice of being able to hopefully be able to replace that income later on. Okay,
fantastic. Al, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it, and I'm so happy that we managed to finish this podcast without this one sticking. For those listening, that we did start over on StreamYard. It must be that platform. It hasn't happened on Zoom. So yeah, it must be something to do with that platform. Thank you so much for being a guest today. And where can people find you, Al?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. And if people want to learn more, I have a lot of free resources as well as YouTube videos over on my website, curiousthemes.com. And I also have some paid courses there if you want to get a little bit faster approach on how to launch and grow your Shopify store.